Hello everyone, I'm Joel, your host for Talking Trends, where we explore trends in real estate and other luxury lifestyle trends here in the greater Sarasota area. Today we're going to talk auctions. So of course you know Sotheby's International Realty's background and history is rooted in its connection with the Sotheby's auction house, where some of the finest art in the world is traded on a regular basis. Today we're going to actually talk about real estate auctions and Sotheby's Concierge auctions. Welcome, Alex. Alex Alavekios is the Director of Business Development and an auction representative for Concierge.
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Joel.
Yeah.
No, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, and you have some esteemed clients. It's going to be fun for me to get a little bit more back from you as well.
Yeah, awesome. And auctions, I think, is kind of a really interesting topic right now. So
yes.
Kind of before we dive into that, maybe just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I come from a real estate background, but I also come from a corporate background as well. I started my days in the Northwest in Seattle. I moved my way slowly to warmer climates. I find myself here in Florida, but that was by way of Amazon and then through Windermere, Redfin, and ultimately introduced myself to this whole world by representing a celebrity client and walking into a home that was up for auction and speaking with one of the representatives, and I was hooked.
Awesome, I love that. So again, hot topic auction. So just tell us a little bit about Concierge Auctions.
Sure. Yeah, so Concierge Auctions as a company has been around for about 16 years. Actually started here in the Sarasota region out of a Sotheby's office, so deep roots here. They've gone on to become a much larger company. We've done business in 36 countries. Wow. We've done business in 40-ish states at this point. Wow. Set a lot of price records. Wow. But we were actually purchased by Sotheby's Auction House and Anywhere Real Estate, which is the same ownership group as Sotheby's International, and since then it's become it's gone to another level, I would say. It's really changed, and there's been a lot of growth. At this point we occupy 90% of the market share for luxury home auctions in the world. Wow. We have the most expensive home ever sold at auction under our belt at this point, the one in California, Los Angeles, and I think we've really made a name for ourselves as being the go-to people for selling something relatively unique and expensive in 60 days or less.
Yeah, awesome. So I mean, that kind of brings us to the next question. In the concept of a seller of real estate, why would they look at an auction versus a traditional sales method?
So, auction is a means of selling quickly. I think there are so many sellers out there that would love to be able to sell their property in a controlled timeline, right? I want to sell my house today. I don't want to wait 2 years from now for that sale to take place. And as you get to a certain echelon of property, and I generally use the number 10 million here in Florida because we have a lot of luxury, right. The air is thin up there. Yeah. And the buyers can be hard to find. And so, waiting for that one unicorn buyer sometimes isn't the best use of their time. My analogy is, look, it's like flying private. Right? We're not so concerned with the ticket price as much as we are about the experience and getting to our destination on time. And to monetize a property at that price point, it's a very attractive idea to be able to say, okay, I'm selling on X date. I know it's going to be done. And so for the seller who prioritizes time, this is the best possible solution.
Yeah, I love that. And so your portfolio of properties, do they usually put their properties on the market in the traditional sense and then steer towards auction?
Yeah, for better or for worse, we generally have a listing agent. A listing agent has already put in time and effort to try to get this property to sell, and they're coming to us generally after having either some difficulty getting the traction that they were looking for or sourcing the right buyer. An agent will reach out to us as a boost, as a way to open up to a new market or a global market, if you will, because of our background and the number of places that we sell. We're not the local experts, we're the global experts. Right. And so you can engage with us, and we bring our team, our marketing, and our database with us. Right. And so, we'd love to do more business from the start. I think that's the most effective way. But yes, most are from the traditional atmosphere.
Yeah, and I think, when I look at, and I've worked with Concierge historically in Sarasota, so I have experience. I think I always want to have it as part of the toolbox for discussions with sellers so that they're always aware of that option. I think, certainly some of the very astute clients really appreciate that time sensitivity. They have clarity in a relatively short period of time, which is maybe what they really need at a certain point in life.
Yeah. And it comes down to working with agents to educate them on this being an option. We would do very well if we came on market initially as the listing goes live, we go live with them. I think that we live in a Zillow world where days on market equate to there must be something wrong with the property or the pricing isn't right, when in reality many properties just have a thin pool of buyers and take time to sell, and there's nothing wrong with them at all. And so presenting from the beginning can be a fantastic solution.
Yep. And I'm going to bring you on my next listing presentation.
Sure.
Only because I think like you said, the air is thin in that realm, and from my perspective too, it's the education process that at this price point, it does just take finding the right buyer and bringing them forward in it. And as you referenced days on market, some people get very nervous about that, but I think the reality of a super luxury property is it just takes time to find that right buyer if you do the traditional way.
Our business isn't finding that perfect buyer anymore, but it's to give a deep representation of the market as it exists today, right? By bringing forward not one specific buyer and listing here and going here, or listing here and selling, but really bringing everybody from all over the globe to compete for something and to exhibit the price through their bids. And a transparent world is a nice world, so I think it's a fantastic option if you want to consider.
No, I like that, and so we're talking about kind of the luxury market. So is there kind of a minimum threshold for pricing that you're looking at?
There's really no hard number. We don't turn down business just based on numbers. But what we find works is, we want something that's visually striking. The first impression matters for our buyers. Maybe they're not necessarily in the market for that property, but the picture does it and they get in. I'll also say that the higher priced a property is, the more auction can make sense. The fewer comparable sales that we have to work with, the easier it is to make an argument for letting the market decide the price. And as you know, having a price conversation without comps or evidence or past sale data is a challenge for agents just as it is a challenge for buyers. And this is a really good tool for selling incomparable properties. And so I like to focus more on the fact that what we're looking for are properties that can benefit from something like this. And generally it's a $2 million and up property, but we'll consider working on anything within a range as long as it makes sense.
And I think it's interesting just going local again. I think from our perspective, what we're seeing in our market too is Sarasota has evolved over the last few years. It maybe was not that well known historically, but all of a sudden it is on the radar screen. So particularly at our super luxury end of the market, most of the people that are looking are not local. They're coming from the Northeast, they're coming from California, they're coming internationally, and they're not necessarily looking at Sarasota or Naples or West Palm Beach. They're actually looking at the property and saying, this is interesting, right? Because it's such a unique property and it draws you in. So I think I love the way you talk. I think that's the way we market too. We try to bring the world into Sarasota and see what we have to offer, because I still believe our price points are really good comparatively. Particularly on some of those crazy interesting properties, because there's still a value comparatively.
And it makes my job fun. We get to work with the finest and the most exclusive, and you get to do that as well. So when we get together, we have fun conversations like this. My question for you is, when working on a global scale, these buyers coming from California, coming from New York, coming from other countries, are they working with their own local representation?
I mean, it's an interesting question. No, I would say predominantly those are direct inquiries. So we've probably, we have a great $22 million listing on Siesta Key that we've had incredible activity on. Most of the people out of market are direct inquiries to us. So they're coming in based on our marketing and say, listen, You know, we want to see this property. We're looking in West Palm Beach. We're looking in Naples as well. We're trying to decide where we want to be.
We have much of the same process. Then I would say one of the benefits for someone who's looking for a global buyer, you know, a direct inquiry is great and it's nice to have, but the system that we utilize allows an agent in New York, an agent in you know, Hong Kong, an agent anywhere in the world to get a full commission by bringing their client to auction. So it taps into another source of potential buyers that you might not be able to capture otherwise. And so, you know, I think if you're looking for global, there's really not a better partnership.
Yeah, interesting. I love it. Sotheby's Concierge Auctions, how many auctions do they do a year, or have you done over the last
several hundred a year is about the best estimate, you know, between 200 and 300 auctions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. We're used to auctions for art and seeing that process happen. I mean, how does it compare or contrast in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the idea behind the acquisition is, you know, the finest luxury goods are sold at auction already. You've got cars and art and jewelry. Why not homes? You know, at that price point, at that stage, you're working with something that the value really is based on how much somebody desires it, and competition can be the best way to get there. But the truth is that we're really just a marketing platform. The underpinnings of any of our auctions are a listing agreement with a listing agent working in a traditional sense. And you know, once we finish our job, which is to find the buyers and put them through the auction process to find a final price point, you know, it goes right back to you, the agent, which is you're going to have you know, a local MLS drafted form. Everything is going to be carried out through the traditional closing process. What we bring to the table is pre-agreements. You know, everybody knows what they're signing up for, and it's a as-is, whereas sale. So, you know, the process after the auction is very straightforward and shouldn't be anything of a learning curve.
And I think there's value there.
Yeah.
Because obviously the process in traditional sense has some hiccups usually along the way. So,
and we're finding one of the biggest selling points for this now, and you know, we'll all admit that auction comes with its risks, but the biggest selling points is that despite any risk in sale price, the seller can be certain that there's not going to be a default or some sort of a back out, because there are no contingencies, and we're finding that, you know, in these longer sales cycles where these, you know, properties require extensive funding and markets are changing, that peace of mind is worth it to a lot of our sellers.
Right. That makes sense. So again, nuts and bolts, I think when we hear real estate auction, we always hear this reserve, no reserve concept. So you can shed a little light on that?
Yeah, so no reserve is where we don't have a preset minimum for the auction. And we do eventually set one, more on that later, but basically the idea is we're not posting a number publicly that is going to stick with the property and create some sort of a price start. With a reserve auction, which is a very effective method to auction your property, we are mutually aligning on that price point with the agent and with the seller. You know, both of those are valid ways to sell your property, but they come with pros and cons, and I think one is better than the other. When we're talking about incomparable properties, what is the correct reserve amount? You know, so most of our auctions happen to be non-reserve, and the few that are reserve properties, that 20% I'd say, are generally homes or condos where there's tons of data that we can use to support it.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yep. So just more easy comparables basically to support where it is, and we can kind of justify the reserve to a certain extent. So interesting. So and just the process. So if I want to go to Sotheby's Concierge Auction and I want to bid on a property, what's the process?
So assuming you've seen the property online, perhaps on our website, it could have been on the MLS, everything should direct you to the property page. All you have to do is click register for this auction. Then someone will reach out to you, and there's a 3-step process. Before you can place a bid on any property, you need to sign your terms and conditions, just like if you were signing up for a new service. You need to have a proof of funds. The proof of funds acts like a line of credit at auction. It protects everyone from having some sort of an issue with overspending. And the last piece is depositing a refundable $100,000 earnest money, if you will, with our escrow company.
And so is each auction different? So is it just that minimum 100,000 that happens and then the remainder at closing?
So it's always $100,000, doesn't matter the price point. What does change, if anything, is just the proof of funds grows, and that's really the defining factor as to whether or not you're a player at a specific auction. But there's no minimums, there's no fees, there's no cost to participating unless you win, of course.
Right.
The way that works, and this could be getting a little too in the weeds, but we collect a deposit after the sale. That deposit is equal to the total sum of 12% of the gavel price.
Okay.
And that's the security that the seller has that everybody's going to go ahead and perform. That's just like earnest money. It goes right towards the full payment of the house.
Obviously, the huge selling point is the process itself, timing-wise and simplicity, really. We've kind of hit it pretty high level. What else do you want to tell us, either about the auction process or about Sotheby's Concierge?
Well, we have some really fun aspects to our process, to our company, that are always nice to talk about. One of the new developments is for Sotheby's agents specifically. Through us, they can align with Sotheby's auction house. And so quarterly, we're actually doing live auctions on set, in Hong Kong, in our headquarters in Dubai, in London, in New York. And something that should be mentioned is, we spend a lot of money on marketing. We do a lot for our agents. We do a lot for the sellers. All of these offerings are free. Everything we do is free to the seller. We're paid by the buyer upon successful transaction. So what we like to think is, if you're gonna consider an auction, there's really no commitment until you actually go through the process of seeing the auction play out. In our no reserve formats, you have a stopgap where you're actually reviewing, as a seller, the initial offers, a registered group of people that are sincerely wanting to purchase your home. And it's like an audition, right? We've auditioned for these first 3 weeks. We've given you a lot of beautiful marketing and packaging, and hopefully that's enough to convince you to move forward, but you're not required to.
Right.
So it's very much the sellers in control with our process. And that sets us apart. We don't charge any fees on the upfront. We don't have any cancellation fees. It's designed to be seller friendly and agent friendly.
Okay, and I like that. I think that's important because I think history has been different. There have been those fees up front.
Correct.
A cost for the seller going in to do an auction. So I think that's a great advantage. And I think the other interesting thing is, I think historically real estate auctions, you think of everybody standing around, right, on the property, and there's an auctioneer, live auctioneer going, and it lasts about 10 minutes.
Yes.
So obviously the process itself is different, right?
Correct. With concierge auctions, we're really focused on doing everything we can to make sure every buyer has been pulled from the market. And we've settled on a 5-week process. But that 5-week process still culminates in about 10 to 30 minutes of real bidding.
Right.
So the time between the start of the process and the end of the process is really that time for those buyers to get comfortable and to ask questions and engage with their agent, and to make sure that they know where they feel comfortable bidding to. Most of the agent involvement is through counseling on the outside of the auction process, and then we are just giving them the forum to go ahead and express their interest in the property through numbers.
Right. And I think I appreciate that as an agent who's going to be guiding a seller or a buyer through the process. I mean, that's what we do best. We know the market, and we can give them that true feel and a certain level of comfort as to what their decisions are.
And at the end of the day, we rely so much on our agent partner to say whether or not we've done the good work. And if we've brought the field as it should be, we want you to be the person telling them ultimately, I give you my blessing or I don't. Right. I think they did the good, the work that it's going to take to get you there or not.
And I think Sotheby's Concierge has done a good job in making that connection to the realtor community, because I think it's really important at the end of the day. And of course, the Sotheby's agents love the connection to the auction house and how it all has become a nice package that's the service level is very high going to the client, which is what we want to make sure happens.
And you've stolen the words out of my mouth. We've had to elevate every part of our process in order to align with the Sotheby's brand. There's a very high standard that we're held to, and we work, intimately with each one of the ownership groups for the Sotheby's offices to make sure that we're upholding our end of the bargain to respect the brand.
Awesome. Love it. Love the brand.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, anything else before we sign off?
No, thank you. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Education is the most important part, and getting out to as many people, as many agents and sellers as possible is what it takes. So,
well, great. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks again for joining us for Talking Trends. Till next time.